Good afternoon. We shall start our second session for the day titled Developing and Qualifying Smart City Products for International Regulations by Mr. Arvind Kamath. So it's my privilege and honor to introduce Mr. Arvind Kamath. Mr. Arvind Kamath has been is the co-founder and director at EMC Engineers. He's also an ISO 17025 assessor for National Accreditation Board. He has been a member of BMS College of Engineering Academic Council, and he has over 3 decades of experience. He has served as scientist E at Aeronautical Development Agency, Ministry of Defense for 9 years. He has worked as principal consultant at Robert Bosch for over 15 years, and he has done his general management program from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, and he holds a master's in engineering from BMS College of Engineering and a bachelor's from National Institute of Engineering, Mysore. In ADA, he was responsible for planning, setting up, and testing communication antennas, LRUs, and electromagnetic compatibility qualification for LCAs. He has been the recipient of Excellence Award by Scientist Advisor to Raksha Mantri while he was in ADA. In Robert Bosch, he has worked as principal consultant to hardware developers and program manager for electromagnetic compatibility engineering. He has spent over 3 years in Germany with the company Bosch. He has co-authored several papers in international conferences and also holds ex-office bearer of Society of EMC Engineers India and a life member of IIT. He is the recipient of Mohanlal Sukhadia Gold Medal from Bangalore University for securing highest marks in Masters of Engineering. He is a practitioner of meditation and also an active ham radio operator for 30 years. He likes to play rhythm pad during his free time, and he is interested in organic farming too. So welcome, sir. Over to you for the presentation. Look forward for a great learning opportunity. Arvind, sir.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now, but I can't see. Yeah, the screen is fine. Yeah, we can just put it on slide and we can start.
Just there seems to be a bandwidth problem.
Yeah.
Can all of you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. And participants, any problem? I think it's fine.
Okay, so if you have any problem with the voice, you can just message me.
Yes, we'll continue.
Good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to the second session. And in this session, I'm going to talk to you about developing and qualifying a smart city product for international regulations. So in the past, I have worked for several products for smart city. I was part of various teams which developed smart city products. So in this session, I'm going to talk to you something which normally is not spoken in any of the trainings or seminars. This is about different regulatory aspects because entire career I have worked on various projects starting from Indian LCA Tejas. I had part of the Tejas. I was responsible for communication system of Indian light combat aircraft Tejas and also for electromagnetic compatibility testing of Tejas light combat aircraft. So it was followed by various other projects on automotive, and after 2015 I have worked on various projects related to IoT. So I will share you with some of the things related to regulatory things. So here I am assuming that even though you are in the teaching profession, so at one part of time or some part of time, you need to develop a product for the market. So once you develop a product for the market, then you need to keep different regulations of the particular country to which you are developing the product. So with this in mind, I'm going to talk for next 1 hour. So basically, if you want to sell a product in a particular country, then you have to comply with certain regulations of that country. So it can be safety, it can be electromagnetic compatibility, we call it as EMC. It can be energy efficiency, like if you buy a refrigerator, they will be giving you some ratings on energy efficiency. And it can be on the ROHS. That means if you are developing a product, how much of some of the metals that are banned, such metals are present in your product or not, how much lead content is there in your product, and so on. So that all will be under ROHS. And how you are going to dispose your product. So that is the last one. However, if you are developing a IoT product, IoT products will have an additional requirement, because IoT products normally have either Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, Zigbee, LoRa, so many wireless devices. So you need to qualify additionally for wireless also. That means whatever I have shown in the block, I am going to talk in the next 1 hour. That is electromagnetic compatibility and wireless regulations across the world. If you say this figure, the products are developed for various countries. It is not just India, because once you develop a product, it may be sold, it is likely to be sold in various other countries. So you have to keep in mind to which all countries you are going to develop the product. Only then you have to start your design. Without keeping this in mind, you cannot design a product. So if you see here, now you can see a lot of symbols. For example, if you see USA, there is a symbol called as FCC. What is this FCC and how to qualify your product for FCC? Similarly, if you see over Europe, you can see a symbol CE. So I will use the pointer. Okay, so there is a symbol CE over Europe. So what does this represent? Similarly, if you are developing a product for China, there is CCC. So what is CCC and what does it represent? So every country has one symbol or the other, most of the countries. However, how about India? We'll come to this later. So if you are designing a product, it depends on not only the country, but what kind of product you are designing. Suppose you are designing a automotive product, the standards are different, regulations are different, because automotive is normally safety critical. So you cannot expect your instrumentation control units to malfunction. when you are driving a vehicle, which can be safety critical. So standards for a automotive are different. So if you are designing something for an electric vehicle, the standards are different. However, if you are designing a product for military and aerospace, the standards are different. And if you are designing a IoT product for a consumer market, the standards are different. So in today's session, we are going to see what are the different standards. And you have to keep the standard in mind when you design the product, because of several reasons. We will see why you need to design a product for a particular standard, because of so many reasons, which we will see one by one. So any product for that matter, it can be computers, consumer electronics, medical electronics, electrical component, acoustics, toys. Any electronic product needs certification. So you cannot sell your product as you wish. It needs some certification. So any product needs to follow the regulation of a country. Suppose you take a automobile, for example. I'll take a automobile. You can take any product in mind. So an automobile can be divided into system level, which is the whole vehicle. Subsystem level means like electronic control units of the vehicle. And at the IC level, that is inside your electronic control units, you will be using certain ASICs, you will be using different chips and all. So we have different level of certification. So even the IC level, you need to qualify. This is normally done by the ASIC designers or IC designers. At the subsystem level, suppose you are a tier 1 company, you are going to supply subsystem like engine control unit to the OEM. Here OEM is Tata or Mahindra or Maruti Suzuki. So you are supplying a subsystem to the OEM, and the subsystem should also qualify certain regulations. And at the system level, the whole vehicle has to comply certain regulations. So I was mentioning about term EMC. What is this EMC? And what are the different terminologies in EMC? I will briefly mention, because to understand today's session, you need to be familiar with these terminologies. So any product, electrical product, can radiate, or any electrical product is susceptible. If you see this figure, so there is a person who is using a drilling machine, and if you see on the right side, there is a TV monitor, and when the person is using a drilling machine, let us say the TV monitor is getting affected. So the drilling machine is the source of electromagnetic interference, whereas in this case, the TV monitor is a susceptible equipment. So EMI, electromagnetic interference, and susceptibility, that is electromagnetic susceptibility. So what is electromagnetic compatibility? You can see in the bottom the definition of electromagnetic compatibility. If a equipment you design has no electromagnetic interference and no electromagnetic susceptibility, we call it as electromagnetic compatibility. However, it is not possible to design any product without EMI. Every product will radiate something. Here, no EMI means your emissions are within the prescribed limits. Your emissions of the equipment you are designing is within the prescribed limits of that particular regulation of the country. That is what it means. Similarly, electromagnetic susceptibility, it should be within the prescribed limits of the regulations or standards of that country. So that is what electromagnetic interference, electromagnetic susceptibility, and electromagnetic compatibility mean. Hope it is clear for you, because any IoT product you design for smart city comes under this. Why EMC is needed? Suppose you are designing a product and it may become susceptible for anything. Suppose a bike is going in the road, the spark plug of the bike may generate some emissions and your TV monitor may get affected for a small time, few seconds. So we will say that the issue is very minor because there is no loss of revenue. Let us take one more example. You can see the picture here. Say on the ground floor of the building, there is a BPO. In the BPO, a lot of people are working. On the top floor of this building, a person is operating a transmitter or radio station. So transmitter means it is transmitting. So what you can expect here, you can expect a lot of interference from the transmitter into the persons working in the BPO. So people may not be able to communicate properly. Many times you would have called some service center and there will be a lot of background noise, a lot of sound coming. So there will be a loss of revenue because you will not talk to those people again, or you will give a bad rating for that BPO. So whenever such things happen, we call it as medium loss because the loss of revenue is always there. Now, thirdly, let us consider a aircraft. A aircraft is flying. So I was part of LCA Tejas design. So every aircraft will have several interferences, source of interference. In this figure, I have shown different interfering sources. For example, the ATC radar. Whenever you have flown in an aircraft, you would have seen a ATC radar rotating in the airport. There will be a control tower in the airport. On the top of the control tower, there will be a ATC radar, and the radar will be continuously rotating. This ATC radar is to detect various aircrafts coming and going out of the airport, and they will have several tens of kilometers of range. So these ATC radars are typically several megawatts power. So it is not an ordinary transmitter, but it is a transmitter with several megawatts of power at different frequency bands. Let us say your aircraft is going to land in a ship. Let us say I have a fighter aircraft. The fighter aircraft has to land in a ship. You would have heard about INS Vikramaditya or INS this and that. So each of these ship carriers, aircraft carrier ships, will have radars in that, ground radars. There can be several radars located near the airport also. Similarly, when the aircraft is flying, it may fly in formation with other aircrafts. So other aircrafts will also have high power, say, multi-mode radars. We call it as MMR. So on the left side top, you can see a aircraft with a radar in it. It is called as early warning system, advanced early warning system. So advanced early warning system will again be transmitting with several kilowatts of power. And your aircraft may also get exposed to lightnings. That means if anything happens to the aircraft, besides all this, inside the aircraft also there are several control units. There will be flight control system. There will be wireless transmitters in the aircraft. There will be environmental control systems in the aircraft. There will be mission computer in the aircraft. So each of these systems inside the aircraft also can equally generate EMI. That means when you qualify an aircraft, you have to ensure that the aircraft is qualified for keeping in mind all these EMI sources, electromagnetic interference sources. So if you make any mistake, what will happen? So there will be a major loss. This major loss can be death or injury, or it can be a major loss of revenue. A typical light combat aircraft will cost you about 300 to 400 crores. The Rafale will cost you 1,600 crores. That is the cost of each aircraft. So you should be very careful while you design the aircraft. You cannot say that I have designed an aircraft, now I will next qualify the aircraft. So you cannot qualify the aircraft without qualifying for these regulations. You have to keep in mind the EMI and then qualify the aircraft. So it can be aircraft, it can be a TV monitor, it can be a toy, or it can be a IoT device. So every device will have to be qualified for the regulations. So what we are saying is, these days your product is going to be more and more dense. So you have high density electronics, you will be having high speed switching because of DC to DC converters and so on. You have got high data rate, day by day the data rate is increasing. You have got harsh environment. So you have to design any product. It can be an IoT product also. Your IoT product may be located somewhere on a building with several other products next to each other. So there will be harsh environment. So many times we see this, especially in India, because I have seen a lot of people coming to me with problems, not from my organization, but from outside the organization. Lot of startups will come to me. So they will design the product, everything is ready. Then only they will come to know that it has to qualify for a standard of a particular country. So what will happen? They will spend some 5 to 10 lakhs or even 15 lakhs for getting the product tested for electromagnetic compliance, EMC. So testing a product for electromagnetic compliance may cost you somewhere from a couple of lakhs till say 15 lakhs for one round of testing. So you have designed your product, you have tested the product. Now the product is likely to fail if you have not designed it properly. The chances of failure is about 85% as per my experience. That means you have done everything. Now the product has failed. Whatever money you have spent for qualifying the product, the testing, that is also waste now, because you have spent some 10 to 15 lakhs for testing and it has failed the test. Now you have to redesign the product. Redesigning again will cost you more money. It will cost you more time. So that means there is heavy loss for your company if you do not know how to qualify your IoT product or any product for particular regulation and standard related to electromagnetic compatibility. Some of the data shows that revenue loss by one of the top 20 tier 1 company due to electromagnetic interference is $4 billion. That is 10% of the revenue is lost in getting your product qualified, and because of wrong design, you will get into problems. Now I'll give you some 2-3 examples. Normally no company will give their data outside. So such data is not published unless it comes in a public domain. So some old stories, I'm going to tell 1 or 2 stories where one had a real problem. In 1967, a fire broke out on board of a aircraft carrier in USA called as USS Forrestal. So USS Forrestal is a ship carrying aircrafts, is a military ship carrying aircrafts. So there was a fire on the aircraft. A missile from F-4 Phantom aircraft went and hit A-4 Skyhawk aircraft. So one aircraft was ready to take off and a aircraft was parked nearby. That was F4 Phantom aircraft was parked nearby, and a missile unintentionally got triggered and went and hit Skyhawk aircraft. Skyhawk aircraft had bombs in it, and it had a 1,000-pound bomb. It was released because a missile came and hit A4 Skyhawk aircraft. 1,000-pound bomb got exploded on board of USS Forrestal. So this whatever fire and disaster, it lasted for 13 hours and 134 people lost their life. Now, what was the reason for this mishap? The reason for mishap is the F4 Phantom aircraft had a missile, and the whole system, the pylon interface boxes of the F4 Phantom aircraft was not qualified for electromagnetic compatibility. That means there was an unintentional trigger due to exposure to ship's surveillance radar. So ship's surveillance radar exposed or illuminated the aircraft, and aircraft released a missile without any triggering. Because of which whole mishap happened. So you can imagine how much havoc a electromagnetic compatibility, non-compatibility can bring about. I will give you one more interesting example. This happened in Argentina War. There was war between Argentina and Great Britain. So this was in 1982. There was again ship from Great Britain. It was parked in Argentinian Sea, because Britain wanted to fight with Argentina, and they had taken their ship to Argentinian Sea, and the ship was parked near to Argentina. This ship had various systems. One was a missile tracking system. Another was a long distance communication system. Because the ship belonged to Great Britain, they had to communicate with their headquarters in Britain, which was far away. So they had a long distance communication system, and also they had a missile tracking system, because they did not want Argentina to fire missiles on their ship. But the problem was the missile tracking system and the long distance communication systems were not compatible with each other. We call this as intra-system EMC. Inter-system EMC, intra-system EMC. Within a system, if something is not compatible, it is called as intra-system EMC. So the tracking system, missile tracking system and communication systems were not compatible with each other. That means they used to interfere with each other. So what they used to do is, whenever they wanted to communicate with Britain, they used to switch off the missile tracking system, and whenever they were operating missile tracking system, they switched off the communication system of the ship. So one fine morning, what happened is, they had to communicate with Great Britain, so they switched off the tracking system. Somehow these Argentinian people, either by chance or because of some other reason, they came to know that their tracking system will be switched off at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. because they had to communicate with the Britain. So when they had switched off their missile tracking system and they were communicating with Britain, a missile came and struck the aircraft, and there were several deaths and loss of about 20 people died during this mishap. So this is how things will happen in your real life, whether it can be a military system or it can be your IoT system or any electronic product. You have to get your product qualified, and during the qualifications you will undergo several difficulties, and you have to keep this in mind. in order to avoid this, what we should do, we should know about the standards and certification beforehand. Beforehand, I should know that to what standards I'm going to certify my product, and based on this, I will prepare right from the beginning, from the initial planning phase and design phase. So if you do it right from the beginning, the chances of passing the compliance test will be very high. Is it clear? Is the audibility okay?
Yes, sir.
Fine. Okay, then I will take some 30-second break. I'll come back in 30 seconds and I will continue with the next part of the lecture. I'll just come back. Okay, thank you. I'm back. One second. I'm checking my network. Please, so that's why I switched off the video. So laptop, and take your mouse and see on the bottom of the mouse what all symbols are there. There will be some, there will be all that C will be there, F will be there, IC will be there, and so many will be there. So that means that product has been qualified for so and so country, such and such a country, and each country have their own regulations. However, for India, I had showed you a question mark. What does it mean? In India, there is no regulation as on now for a IoT device or a consumer product. I'm sorry to say that there is no regulation in India for a consumer product or a IoT product. However, India has a regulation only for automotive. Thank God, because your car you are driving is always qualified. So there is a separate entity for this, and they have made it mandatory for any car you drive or a car you sell in India should qualify what is known as AIS 004 automotive standard for India. So that is AIS 004, A for Alpha, I for India, S for Sierra. 004 is the automotive standard. Other than automotive standard, there is no standard for any of the product sold in India. However, I was working for Ministry of Defense. So our LCA, Light Combat Aircraft, I am glad to say that it has been qualified for MIL standard 461 D or E or F. So that means our Indian light combat aircraft, in 2001 itself got qualified for USA, that is United States military standard. So we planned right from the beginning, and the aircraft got qualified in 2001 itself for electromagnetic compatibility. That standard is called as MIL standard 461. Similarly, whatever I am in close touch with ISRO also, because our offices were nearby and we used to attend meetings in ISRO very often. So even the spacecrafts of ISRO are qualified for MIL standard 461. This is again American standard. So that means voluntarily Department of Space and Ministry of Defense both are qualifying their product for American standards, because there is no Indian standard equivalent. So that is a good thing. So whatever defense product India designs through DRDO or a aerospace product through ISRO, they are all qualified for American standards. So we will see different regulations, that is standards and certifications for different countries. You can see this figure. First we'll see about international standards. There are three different entities. One is called as ISO, other one is called as IEC, third one is CISPR. So ISO you know already, International Standards Organization. IEC, International Electrotechnical Commission. And CISPR, this is International Special Committee on Radio Interference. The original word is probably French. So if you translate to English, it will be International Special Committee on Radio Interference. That is CISPR. So these are the three authorities in international standards, and the regulations will be defined by any one of them. Let us see about Europe. In Europe, there are again three different European Standards Organization. You can see three of them. One is CEN. CEN is nothing but European Committee for Standardization. There is CENELEC. CENELEC is, or CENELEC, that is European Committee for Electrotechnical Standardization. And there is ETSI, European Telecommunication Standards Institute. So these people will define the standards. Let us see for India. In India, there is no standard for EMC for any consumer product or IoT product. However, you will see some symbol called as ISI on your product. Many of your electrical items you buy from the market will have ISI, or any electronic goods may also have ISI. That is issued by Bureau of Indian Standards. This is not an electromagnetic standard, but this is just a safety standard. That means your equipment has all grounding grounding done properly so that you will not have a shock hazard. So it is safety, electrical safety. So BIS will define electric safety, not EMC. Then there is one Wireless Planning Commission from Government of India, Ministry of Communication. So it's called as WPC. It is in Sanchar Bhavan, New Delhi. I visited this place a couple of times when I was in ADA. However, it is not equivalent to what FCC is. FCC in USA, it is Federal Communication Committee, FCC, and they will qualify any product for, they are the authority on that. They can either say your product is ready to be sold in USA, or they can reject it based on your test results. And secondly, if some product is sold in USA without any FCC marking, then they can put fine on you. So they are very strict. However, in India, WPC does not do that like USA. The WPC will give you some licenses when you import IoT product from abroad. That means let us say you are buying a IoT product from say Japan. Then the person who is importing that will get some license from WPC. So WPC is responsible for that. And finally, if you see this figure, there is a third one, AIS, Automotive Industry Standard. I told you already that any automobile sold in India should qualify for AIS 004. So there is one Automotive Industry Standard Institute, and I think most of the testing labs, their office and all is there. You would have heard about ARAI, Automotive Research Institute of India. So it is located in Maharashtra, Pune, and neighboring Ahmednagar and so on. So they are the people who have a final say on automotive products. So fortunately in India, there is a standard AIS 004 for automotive products. So in USA, there is FCC, Federal Communication Committee. Then there is SAE, that is Automotive Society of Automotive Engineers USA, that is SAE. And yeah, that's all. The third one I should have deleted. So they will define most of the standards in USA. So when it comes to automotive, SAE will decide, whereas when it comes to consumer products, FCC will decide. And third one is MIL standard. Yeah, the third one was meant for MIL standard, and MIL standard is there by Department of Defense, America, USA. These are the US standards. So this is a typical figure of FCC and CE. FCC is for USA and CE is for Europe. That means if you qualify your product, when you pass the test meant for FCC, then you are authorized to put FCC sticker on your product. Similarly, if you pass all the tests for Europe, you can put the CE symbol on your product. That is what it means. Now I will go to another topic, a slightly technical topic. However, seeing that the participants are from different background, I'll try to keep it very simple. How electromagnetic interference is generated. So since you are all, most of you are professors, so I will give you some equations. You will come to know about how electromagnetic interference is generated. Those who are from electronic background, I think already know about this. So what happens? So to generate electromagnetic interference, high time varying electric current and voltages in a closed loop can lead into EMI. That means there should be a time varying electric current or time varying electric voltage in a closed loop will generate electromagnetic interference. I will tell about this immediately after this. You have heard about Maxwell's equation. There are 4 Maxwell's equations. I will put it here. It is a high school topic. I think in high school or pre-university you would have studied this. There is what is known as Gauss law. There is Gauss law for magnetism. Magnetic field coming out of a system is always 0. So it is surface integral of mu h ds is 0. And there is a third law called as Faraday's law. So let us just see about Faraday's law. What does Faraday's law say? If you see this figure on the right hand side, there is a surface integral of changing magnetic field. So that is changing magnetic field with respect to time over a surface on the right hand side will generate, if you see along the loop, a electric field. That means let us say you have a PCB. You can listen to me carefully. What does this mean? Let us say you have a PCB. PCB has several traces and connections. So it is a surface. So on the surface, let us say there is a changing magnetic field. That means your PCB is exposed to changing magnetic field. Then what will happen? It will generate an electric field along the traces. That is line integral means along your PCB traces, there will be electric field generated. So when a PCB is exposed to magnetic field along the surface, it will generate electric field inside the traces. That means unintentionally, let us say your car is moving in front of a TV tower or in front of a radar. What will happen? There will be unintentional exposure of magnetic field into your vehicle, especially the electric vehicles. Electric vehicles have DC to DC converters. They have got high power motors, high voltage motors. So what will happen? There will be a lot of magnetic field in EVs, electric vehicles. So whenever there is a change in magnetic field, even the charging of an electric vehicle is done through induction. So it will contain a very high magnetic field because there will be primary coil with connected to the power source and secondary will be connected to your vehicle. So there will be a magnetic field, high rate of change of magnetic field along the surface will generate electric field along your traces. That is what it means. That is Faraday's law. Then we have Ampere's law. Again, see to the right side of the equation. There is a rate of change of electric field along the surface. And on the left hand side, there will be magnetic field generated along the line. That means if your PCB is exposed, the whole PCB is exposed to electric field, that is changing electric field, or a constant current, both will generate a magnetic field in the traces of your PCB. That is what it means. That means any electronic product, it can be your IoT product, will generate electric field and magnetic field when it is exposed to changing electric field and changing magnetic field. That is what it means, Maxwell's equation. If you see this figure, this is the frequency spectrum. Sorry. This is the frequency spectrum. I think, is it visible properly? On the lower side, I have shown a spectrum. And this is called as frequency spectrum. Any frequency can be shown in frequency domain. And if you show any frequency in the frequency domain, what will happen? There will be a frequency spectrum. as Professor Nagbhushan told in the previous session, this electromagnetic compatibility is a multidisciplinary subject, or any product development will be a multidisciplinary subject. So you need to know about a few things. So it is not very mathematical, but a few things you need to know. So if you see here, the amplitude of the harmonics is directly proportional given by the equation. This equation you would have again studied in your high school. So it is Fourier series. In Fourier series we would have studied this. So amplitude of the harmonic is equal to 2 by n pi sine n pi into d, whereas capital D is called as the duty cycle. That means if you have a DC to DC converter, the duty cycle of the DC to DC converter can be adjusted through software, and when you change the duty cycle, that is on time versus off time, if you change the on time versus off time of your DC to DC converter, the amplitude of the harmonic can be controlled. That means how much is each of this first harmonic, second harmonic, third harmonic. All this will be determined by the duty cycle of the signal. So by controlling the duty cycle, one can control the emissions. That means if you are designing a product, suppose you want to control the emissions, you can even change the emissions by changing just the software. This is one of the possibility. By changing the software, you can change the duty cycle. By changing the duty cycle, you can control the amplitude of the harmonics. So this is how you can actually, even through software also, your software will be important to qualify in EMC actually. That is why I called it as a multidisciplinary subject. So it is not just the hardware design, but even your software design will determine whether your equipment will pass the EMC test or not. I will give you some basic terminologies. I think I told in the first slide, I told about EMI, EMS and EMC. EMI is in electromagnetic interference. Second one was electromagnetic susceptibility, and third one was compatibility. So the source is a emitter. It is also called as culprit or source of EMI. Whereas the victim, it is the susceptible equipment, EMS. It is electromagnetically susceptible. So we call it as a victim or receptor. So there will be a medium between the two. The medium can be conducted medium, or the medium can be radiated medium. So I am showing the same figure again, and I will use some terminologies. So if at all you are designing a product on IoT, or if your students are designing a product on IoT, then you can ask them how much is the emission generated by the equipment, whether your equipment is susceptible. So this is not for demonstration purpose, but this is if you sell the product to a particular country. Then the emissions will get propagated to the culprit by either radiation or conducted, radiated emission or conducted emission. You can see the figure carefully on the right side. There is a propagation either through radiation or through conduction. So you have radiated emission and you have conducted emission. So all are important. So these are the basic terminologies you should know. That's all. There is nothing more, nothing less. Emission, immunity, radiated, conducted. So radiation can directly radiate. Radiation can take place based on Maxwell's equation. Conducted is physical medium. There is some cable routed. So your whatever AC cables are there, that itself can act like a conducted emission. So all the RF can get propagated even through the AC cables. So there are two more terminologies, intra-system EMC and inter-system EMC. So I gave you the example of a military ship. So within the ship, there will be a tracking system, there will be communication system. It is called as intra-system, within the system. Whereas inter-system, if the aircraft is there, whatever that is outside the aircraft, it can be lightning, it can be another aircraft, it can be ATC radar, it can be ground radar. So they are all inter-system. So these are the two types of EMI that is generated, intra-system and inter-system electromagnetic compatibility. So you can see now what are the different types of radiations. One is natural radiator, example is lightning. Other one is intentional radiator, sorry, unintentional radiator. For example, I have shown here high power transmission line. The transmission line is meant only to carry some electricity, say at 50 hertz or 60 hertz or whatever frequency it is designed for. However, it is not intended for radiation. However, it will also radiate. So if you stand below a high powered whatever tower is there or cables are there, if you stand near that, you can even hear high sound that is going on, buzzing sound. Other than that, if you try to operate your mobile phone below a say transmission line, power transmission line, your mobile may not work. Or if you hold a tube light, the tube light may glow all by itself. If you hold a bulb, the bulb will also glow by itself without any other external connection. That means it is an unintentional radiator. There is a lot of unintentional radiation taking place. And finally, intentional radiators. Intentional radiators are either licensed or unlicensed. Unlicensed will be your Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, because you need not take any license from the government to put your Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So it is called as unlicensed. Typically 2.4 gigahertz is unlicensed band. Our licensed is, let us say I am a ham radio operator. I want to operate ham radio. Then I need to take license from the government. If I want to design my own transceivers, or if I want to buy a transceiver and keep it in my station, then I need to take license from the government. It is called as licensed radiator. That means it is you need to take a license from the government. However, if you are selling the product, whether it is licensed or unlicensed, if you are selling a product, then you need to take license from the government. However, if you are buying the product, sometimes you have to take the license from the government. Sometimes you need not take the license. Hope it is clear. So I'll skip this. I have come back to again the same topic which I told in the beginning. No, it is a testing topic. I'll take about 15 more minutes. So let us say I want to design a product for electromagnetic compatibility. That means I am designing a IoT product. So IoT product will have, let us say, a controller. It will have a display. Then it will have several sensors. Then it will have some Wi-Fi device, because you have to exchange the data with say control center or something. It will have Wi-Fi device. It can be a Wi-Fi, it can be a Bluetooth, LoRa. So many things are there. Zigbee is also there. So when I am designing the product, I need to design my product, and then finally, if the product is ready, I have to take it for testing. So I will just explain to you what are the different tests that need to be done in a very brief manner, because at least you need to have a basic understanding of this. If you see this figure, I have already explained. There is a conducted immunity. There is conducted emission, radiated immunity, radiated emission. These are the 4 basic tests. And the figures are explanatory. Immunity means your system which you are designing should be immune. And emission means the system that you are designing should be, again, it should not emit, and the emission should be within the regulatory norms. So conducted immunity, conducted emission. The figure I have shown conducted. What is conducted? It is conducted through some cable. Whereas radiated immunity, radiated emission, it is radiating through the air medium. So it is radiated immunity, radiated emission. A spark plug may emit electromagnetic interference through air. So it is radiated emission. And what is immunity? The electronic controller should be immune. It should not malfunction. So that is what is immunity. So you need to take care of 4 basic tests: conducted immunity test, conducted emission test, radiated immunity test, radiated emission test. Okay, next. So emissions are due to power lines or data lines. So this is conducted emission. Emission can be due to power lines or data lines, and can be few harmonics of AC power also. So this is about conducted emission. And how do I test for conducted emission? I will show it in the next figure. Conducted emission, there are 2 methods. One is current method and other one is voltage method. So current method or current probe method, second probe is voltage method, through which you can measure the emission. That means you have designed a product, you have to measure it for emission. How much is your product emitting? So if you see this, there is a current clamp. On the right side, you can see a current clamp, and this current clamp is inserted into the wiring harness cable of the device under test. EOT means equipment under test. Whenever I use EOT or DOT, EOT stands for equipment under test and DOT stands for device under test. So let us say I have a electronic control unit of a car. Then that electronic control unit will be connected in the car through a cable harness. Then to measure how much conducted emission is there, I can insert a current probe into the harness and I can measure the current getting going from the equipment under test. So this is called as conducted emission test current probe method. So this is how the figure looks like. Suppose you go to the lab to conduct the test. I think these days many of the engineering colleges have got electromagnetic compatibility labs. First among them was IIT Kharagpur. IIT Kharagpur has its own electromagnetic compatibility lab. And for MTech RF and microwave in IIT Kharagpur, it is mandatory subject. The students should study the subject and also do one lab course. So IIT Kharagpur was the first to set up electromagnetic compatibility lab. I think then now it is there in IIT Madras and other IITs also, main IIT Kanpur, IIT Bombay. Besides this, I think it is there in VIT Vellore. I don't know whether somebody is there in this group with VIT Vellore. They have got EMC lab. I don't know whether it is in Vellore or somewhere else. I had gone there some 4 years back to deliver a lecture. That time the lab was not there. Now I learned that there is electromagnetic compatibility lab in VIT also. In Karnataka, as far as I know, there is no college which has a EMC lab. There are some three antenna labs in Bangalore. One is in RVC, one is in MS Ramaya, and third one is in Christ University. However, antenna testing lab cannot be used for EMC testing. And antenna design cases are very few, but EMC testing for every equipment that you are going to sell in the market, you need to do a EMC test. Our antennas, you may need an antenna only very rarely, because whoever sells you Wi-Fi, whoever sells you Bluetooth will also give free of cost antenna also, antenna design also. However, EMC labs are very much important, because every electronic product or electrical product that you are going to design should qualify for EMC. So EMC lab, if a college has a EMC lab, that EMC lab can be used for even commercial purposes. So this is called as next figure is conducted emission through LISN. So LISN is an interface, a line interface stabilization network. It is an interface between power supply and the equipment. So that is what it means. I will not go to the details of this, because today's intention is only to give an introduction. Then radiated emission test. It will tell you how much your equipment is radiating. DUT stands for device under test. Device under test is radiating something. To measure the radiation, you keep an antenna. From the antenna, it will go to a preamp, and it will then go to a receiver. So this will measure the radiated emission, and I think it is very much self-explanatory. So this is a radiated emission test. So the cost of a EMI receiver can be 30 lakhs onwards. Minimum cost may be about 20 to 30 lakhs, whereas a good EMI receiver may cost even 1 crore or above. So I will skip this. There are different types of detectors. It is not an ordinary radio receiver. EMI receiver is a specialized receiver with a different kind of detectors, which is shown here. Then we have got a radiated immunity test. That means how much your equipment is susceptible. That is called as radiated immunity test. In radiated immunity test, you are going to radiate on your equipment and see whether the equipment will misbehave or not. So this figure is again self-explanatory. From the signal generator, I am going to amplify the signals. The signals will go to directional coupler. Directional coupler is for tapping purpose. You can tap it for power meter. And other signal will directly go to the antenna. So, and you will radiate on your equipment. So depending on the frequency of operation, the antennas will be different for different frequencies. So equipment is going to get exposed to radiation, and there is a chamber here. So you do the radiated emission and radiated immunity test inside a shielded chamber. Why shielded chamber? Because you don't want the outside world signals to affect your equipment. You want only intended signals to affect your equipment. That is why there is a chamber. So you are going to radiate on your equipments, and you are going to see whether it will misbehave or not. There are fiber optic probes. Through fiber optic link, it will go to field monitor meter. Field monitor meter will measure the field. This is the typical setup. And my company is specialized in giving consultancy for setting up of labs. So ours is a specialized company which will work only with electromagnetic compatibility. So there is another test called as conducted immunity test. It is also called as BCI or bulk current injection test. So you are going to inject into the harness some current up to say 200 milliamps, and when you inject into the harness of the equipment, a lot of current will get coupled into the harness and the system can misbehave. So there can be unintended operation of your equipment, and that is done by, if you see the right side, it is very clear. This is the harness of a equipment, and you are going to inject into the harness of the equipment to see how it will misbehave. Other than the 4 tests which I spoke, there are other tests also. They are called as over voltage tests. One is electrostatic discharge. Our human beings are good in accumulating ESD. Suppose you are walking on a carpet, you will have up to 35 kilovolts of charge inside your body, and when you touch some metallic knob or something, you will discharge into the metal. So these are low energy pulses. ESD is not a high energy pulse, it is a very low energy pulse because the amplitude of ESD is nanoseconds. I mean the time of the di by dt current will be nanoseconds. Walking on vinyl floor can generate 12 kV. We are working on a moving bench, worker moving in the bench can generate 6 kV. Picking up of common polythene bag can generate 20 kV inside your body. So when you touch some electronic equipment, you will discharge into the equipment and equipment will fail. That means when you are designing any IoT device, you should take care that if a human being, either a human being or a machine touches the equipment, there should not be a electrostatic discharge, ESD. So there are different ESD tests. Then there is similar to ESD, there is a EFT, electric fast transient, and there is also surge. Surge is called as secondary lightning. So this figure gives a summary: ESD, EFT, and surge. So ESD has a minimum energy, whereas EFT has more energy. Surge has maximum energy. And above surge is actual lightning. Lightning will be still having very high energy. So you will have to do tests to qualify your product even for ESD, EFT, and surge. Then I will give you a small 2-3 slides and then I will conclude. Hardware development cycle, how you should plan. Initially, you will do a schematic design of your product. So during schematic design, you should know what are the standards that you are going to qualify your product. That means what test you are going to do, you should know beforehand. It is not that you design the product and take it for testing, then it will fail the test. So you should know the test beforehand, then you do the schematic design. Then there is a PCB design. You cannot do automatic routing in your PCB design. It is totally prohibited. You have to do PCB design manually, because automatic routers as on today are not capable of taking care of EMC guidelines. There are a lot of EMC guidelines, so that itself can be a separate course. I can take some one day on PCB design. So there are a lot of guidelines that need to be followed while making the PCB. Otherwise, your PCB will fail during the test. And then you will go for the lab into testing. So you do a EMC testing inside the lab. I mentioned to you what are the different tests. I briefly gave you the examples. So once you do the test, you will get a result and you will come to know whether you have passed or failed the test. If you have failed the test, you have to to do some board level debugging and you have to make the changes to the design. So this is a cycle. So do the schematic design, do the PCB design, get it tested, and then if it fails, you have to do debugging and again go for a schematic design. So there is what is known as EMC 3D simulation. Actually, our company is a distributor for one of the indigenous 3D simulation tool called as SimYog ComScope. So we are distributors for that. That is tool developed indigenously by a Indian company startup called as Simyo. It is a IISc professor has started this company and he has developed a EMC 3D simulation tool. So it is a very good thing that India has its own tool. Otherwise, normally we import CST, Microwave Studio, HFSS and all, which are imported tools, and this is a indigenous tool. And it is very good tool because I know all the developers who are developing this, they are all PhD holders and very highly qualified professionals. So it is headed by Dr. Dipanjan Gope of IISc. He is the it is a startup started by him. So EMC simulation can be used for every development phase. If you want to analyze your PCB before doing the test, you want to know how it behaves for EMC environment, then you can do a simulation. You can even do the testing through simulation tool. You can do board level debugging. Even for schematic design, either you can use a normal schematic design tool, normal PSpice simulation tool, or you can even use a 3D simulation tool. So EMC simulation is used everywhere, and EMC simulation engineers are one of the highest paid engineers in India or abroad, and highest demand is there for such engineers. So this is about your product planning, how you need to plan your product. So this is how your product plan your product, and shown here. So I think that's all I have for today's presentation.
So if there are any questions, you can unmute yourself and ask. Or you can put it in the chat box.
So a brief about our company. Meanwhile, if you are entering something in the chat box, it's okay. So ours is EMC engineers, and we are dedicated to electromagnetic compatibility in consultancy and training. We conduct a lot of FDPs to engineering colleges and also conduct trainings for engineers from different companies. So we support in designing EMC lab, in establishing EMC lab and testing lab, design lab and testing lab. So we have a lot of lab support also. Plan how to plan your lab test, lab experiments. So we are distributors for 3D simulation tool packages also. So
there is one question, sir.
Yeah.
So what can be the duration and cost of testing?
I told about the cost of this testing. The cost depends on what kind of product you qualify. Typically, if you have a testing done for US, suppose you have to sell your product for US, the cost can be lesser because in USA for consumer product there is only immunity test. So it depends on what kind of product it is. If it is a IoT product, and if it is a consumer or home appliance product, in USA it will cost lesser because there is only emission testing in USA for such products. It will cost you somewhere about 2 to 5 lakhs if it is a consumer product or a home appliance for US, including IoT. Second is, if you are testing it for automotive, it may cost you somewhere about 15 lakhs, irrespective of USA or India or Europe. And let us say if you have a IoT device with Wi-Fi or any wireless device, it will, in USA and all, you will have to do some additional tests. If it is an ordinary Bluetooth, it may cost you some 5 to 10 lakhs extra. However, if you are designing a product with 4G or 5G, it may cost you another 30 lakhs extra. So that is about the cost, and the time needed for testing will be somewhere from 1 week to 3 weeks, typical testing time. So that is about time and cost. And what is that? There is one question.
Any low cost equipment to measure EMC? There's one more question from Manish.
See, we have what is known as pre-compliance. During my training, normally I tell about pre-compliance. Before going for final compliance, you can also do some pre-compliance. So for emission, you need a low-cost receiver. At least receiver means a low-cost receiver may cost you about 5 lakhs. Whereas a EMI receiver may cost you 30 lakhs to 1 crore. So you can use a low cost receiver of about 5 lakhs and do a pre-compliance. Pre-compliance is not a final compliance. It is just for your confidence building. So you can spend some 25 lakhs up to 25 lakhs with the TEM cells, what is known as a TEM cell and a G-TEM cell, you would have heard. So you need to invest about at least about 25 lakhs to have a low cost test facility. However, what we have, I was responsible for setting up a test facility for our light combat aircraft. In the year 97 to 2001, I had done that work. And after joining Robert Bosch, I also set up a test facility at Coimbatore. So they can cost you somewhere about 10 crores. Any test facility will cost you about 10 crores if it is a professional test setup. For colleges, I would say at least you have to spend about 25 lakhs compared to 10 crores and above. So if you want to know more about that, you can always contact me. I can give you an introductory session to your college or a group of colleges, or you can conduct some FDP through us. Will be happy to assist you. Somebody has asked for my email ID. Yeah, I can share my email ID. I will give it here. I think in the next slide, my email ID is there. You can note down.
I shared, sir.
Yeah, you can note down this. Are you able to see? Are you able to see? One second, am I sharing or not?
Yes, we can.
Oh, 1 second, there is a mistake. 3633. There is 1 digit missing. Yeah. So my phone number and mail ID is available. You can always contact me for any support that you want. So to summarize, what I want to tell you is whether it is a IoT device or a product meant for smart city, if you are developing anything as a product, then you need to keep in mind so many things. Because I myself was involved with several IoT product design while I was in Robert Bosch. And other thing is in the morning session also I gave you a overview where we are standing in India. So we may pat our own back saying that we have done this and that, but still if I see in the scale of 1 to 10, both the US and China are somewhere, let us say, in the scale of 9 out of 10 with respect to whatever efforts they are doing, both in general on smart cities or in general on artificial intelligence. It includes robotics, it includes electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles. So they are very, very far ahead. They had given a very good bet on because China. So when they thought about this batteries, then they went to South Africa and they colonized some of the countries and then got all the lithium reserves there and they captured all the mines there. So they had a bet and they thought behind 20 years. I visited China, I think in 2017. And to be frank, they are ahead of us about at least 10 years with respect to all these things. So India did very well in hardware development, no doubt. Software development, no doubt. We are number one in software development. However, China was also good in software development. Whatever money they acquired in software development, they reinvested for R&D. However, our tier 1 companies made a lot of money and got jetliners for their CEOs. However, they did not invest much in R&D. That was the mistake we have done. But let us hope that it will not happen in the future because the government is very, very proactive. However, government cannot do it alone. We have to do it together. So let us work together to make India number one. We'll make India as Vishwaguru. That is the conclusion that I can give. So thank you very much for listening. So if you want any other information, you can always get in touch with me.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, you can always connect with me on LinkedIn also. You can just type Arvind Kamath and maybe there are several Arvind Kamaths. You can connect to me. You can type Arvind Kamath Bosch or something. EMC engineers will come to. Thank you, Dr. Balchandra and Dr. Rajeshwari Hegde.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving insights about regulations, which most of us are unaware of. Any other questions before we wind up for the session? Yeah, that's all I think. Thank you very much, sir, for the details.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the time was not sufficient to get all the details possible within 1 hour or 1.5 hours. It's not technically, practically possible. But anyway, I think we have got a very good idea about the regulations which India has to actually gear up and work towards. And if any of us have questions, we'll still have 4 days before the session, before the FDP closes. And later also, we can get in touch with sir and he should be happy to help you.
Yeah, we have actually 1 credit course for different colleges also, about 12 to 14 hours of course on EMC, 1 credit, and also we have 4 credit courses, about 40 hours of total, like for MTech or for any post-graduation, we have got 4 credit courses also. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone.
It was very informative.